Dutch connectors use wedge locks to keep the male and female terminals in place. The cavities are identified on the back of the housing, and a cavity seal is used if there's no wire. When installing Dutch terminals, make sure you push them in all the way. The following examples are all wrong because the wires aren't fully inserted. A properly inserted wire will click when it locks in place. When you've properly seated all the terminals in the connector, install the wedge lock and lock it in place. You'll know it locks when it clicks. When replacing a terminal, you'll need to strip the end of the wire, but be careful not to strip too much. You need to crimp the terminal onto the wire and onto the wire insulation. The easiest way to get a good crimp is to first load the terminal into the wire crimper. Then you'll want to insert the wire so that the wire insulation stops at the first terminal crimping tabs. Once you've crimped the terminal onto the wire, you'll need to crimp the terminal onto the wire insulation. Then insert it into the connector housing and make sure you hear it click. Repeat the same process for all terminals, regardless of whether they're male or female. Sometimes the tabs on the terminal are a little bit too wide for the terminal crimper. Again, install the wedge lock when all the terminals are in place. When you're done, make sure that the connector is easy to connect and that the terminals don't get stuck or bend on each other. To get the terminals out of the connector housing, you'll need some sort of flat screwdriver with a profile. There are two notches under the wedge lock, and if you put the profiled screwdriver into it, it'll wedge up the wedge lock and release the locking tabs. Each terminal is held in place by its own locking tab. You'll need to reach in with a tool and release the locking tab in order to remove the terminal. The process is the same for male and female terminals. Remove the wedge lock, release the locking tab, and pull on the wire to remove the terminal. Once you're done and all the terminals are back in place, reinstall the wedge lock and make sure your connector still connects smoothly.